It's by-election day in the constituency of Northeast St. Anne. A by-election that is once again being held in Northeast St. Anne, a constituency that certainly over the last 20, 30 years has been quite instrumental in indicating and throwing up surprises, in indicating the political direction of the country. Yeah. It's also going to be another by-election which will continue to set in motion a number of things, political actors and developments, where the governing Jamaica Labour Party is concerned. It needs to get one of its young rising stars, Matthew Samoda, into the House of Representatives. And then thereafter, we expect a number of political developments to flow. I'm talking about the vacancy that is going to be created at the end of October with the departure of the Finance Minister, Dr. Nigel Clark, from the government, and the cabinet of Prime Minister Holness. And that's a big vacancy to fill. It's been, 4 or 5 weeks now? Four or 5 weeks now since we learnt of the planned departure of Dr. Clark, and we have not yet been told who will replace him. I suspect that after today, and when the Prime Minister returns from his official visit to India. By the way, have you heard, do you know that the Prime Minister is on an official visit to India? Yes. I just saw a post. If you can put this up for me, Nora. Just saw a post with the Prime Minister on his official visit to India, flanked by his Foreign Minister, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith. Yes? Can you post that for me? I just sent it to you, the photograph of the Prime Minister in India with his Foreign Minister, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith. Noted, now retired West Indian cricketer Christopher Henry Gayle and his Ambassador for Investments, Dushyant Savadia, of the Amber Group. And you may wonder why Gayle is in that photograph. Well, Gayle is a cult-like hero in India. Yes, he's one of the most recognizable faces in India. And he's part of the Prime Minister's delegation in India. Yeah, making use of his fame in India to the benefit of Jamaican diplomacy. Yeah, and you see him there with the other members of the delegation. Yeah, I don't know the name of the other gentleman in the photograph, but you can clearly see Chris Gayle there to the left of the Prime Minister. Yeah, and then the Foreign Minister, and then use that gentleman, I don't know who he is, and then Ambassador Dushyant Savadia in India, right? They're there to deepen ties between Jamaica and India, of course, and to explore investment opportunities. So I suspect when the Prime Minister comes back from India, yeah, and after the by-election today, the pace in terms of the outstanding political business will be stepped up. And the by-election today, of course, is not going to be as competitive as we would expect, because the main opposition, People's National Party, is boycotting the poll. They're not putting forward a candidate, although I hear some in the Matthew Samuda campaign suggesting that the PNP has put up a surrogate in the form of one of the independent candidates, or the independent candidate, Mr. David Fritz Anderson. I don't know how true that is, but that's what they're saying, that he's a surrogate of the PNP. Yes? But today, there are approximately just under 44,000 eligible voters in the by-election today in Northeast Sintan. Just about 43,820 odd eligible voters. Now, by-elections and general elections don't attract high levels of participation again in Jamaican politics. And even in the days of higher level of participation, by-elections wouldn't normally attract no more than about, on average, 20 to 30% turnout. I suspect today is going to be no different. In fact, given the fact that the PNP is not contesting, I would imagine if we see a turnout of anything excess of 10 to 15% would be a bit of a surprise. I don't expect the turnout to be more than about 10-15%. Yes? And I saw our team posting interviews with a number of the residents of Northeast Sintan. Yes? And they were essentially saying that, no, they don't have no time for that. They're going to their jobs, and even if they had time, they're not interested. The level of apathy is high, yeah, not surprising. Our Blue Dot polls last week found that 38% of the people they spoke with were not interested, yes, in voting. 38%. And that figure is higher than when you look at those who say they would vote JLP, total about 31%. Those who said they would vote PNP, total 28%. So the undecideds are not interested, total 38%. That tells you a story that we have been talking about for a long time now. The political process is failing to inspire people to the levels that it was able to do up to about 1989, 1993. That's how many years ago? Nearly 30 years ago. Since then, we have seen a steady decline, yeah, in voter participation in elections in Jamaica. People feel that the political parties are not delivering for them. They're not seeing any reason for them to vote, because voting for either of them makes no difference. And I suspect today will be a similar story when at about 7 o'clock this evening we will hear what was the turnout. I'm saying if you get a turnout in excess of 15% today, that will be quite a bit of a surprise. Yeah? The Jamaica Labour Party politically would like a strong turnout as a vote of confidence in their man, Matthew Samuda. But I rather doubt it. Yes? The Electoral Office of Jamaica says they are ready. They are ready. Director of Elections Glasspool Brown, yes, Glasspool Brown, the Director of Elections, told our newsroom that he is advising voters to walk with their ID cards as this will make the voting process more efficient.
Well, tomorrow is the by-election. We have the polling stations open at 7 and close at 5 p.m. We will start the voting process at that time. And we anticipate a small, very smooth day. We just ask person again, just as a reminder, that electors walk with their ID card. It assists the process for it to flow more freely and ensure that they're able to do the process each elector as quick as possible.
That's Glasspool Brown, the Director of Elections. He also disclosed the number of voters on the election list.
On the voters list, there are 40,836 registered electors on the list for Northeast Central.
40,800. Yes, so there he is. A former member of the Foreign Service who is listening was able to tell me the gentleman in the photograph with the Prime Minister in India that I didn't know, he's Jamaica's High Commissioner to India, Jason Hall. Yes? The listener said to me, that's Jason Hall, Jamaica's High Commissioner to India. So there you have the full list. Yes? Beginning with Dushanth Savadia, Jason Hall, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, the Prime Minister, and the universe boss, Christopher Henry Gayle, right? Former West Indies cricketer, who is in India, yes, as part of the Jamaican delegation on the Prime Minister's official visit, because he is a huge figure, yeah, in India. Yeah, Gayle is like one of their own in India. They love him, yeah, so he's now putting that to the diplomatic service of his country. Nice to see him playing that role, yes? Former Excelsior cricketer, West Indian, Jamaican, explosive opening batsman. Yeah. All right. The other thing I want to turn to this morning, keeping with the theme of elections, today is the final day for persons to be registered, to be on the voters list, if you want to be eligible to vote in the next elections. Today, if you haven't done so yet, today, September 30, is the final day for you to be registered on the list. Yes? This is the Director of Elections, Glasspool Brown.
Persons who want to be on the next updated list to be published at the end of November. Tomorrow, the last day. Tomorrow being Monday, October 30th, is the last day that they can seek to be registered for them to be on that list. I don't think there'll be any extension. I think that's a timeline that has been set or given to us by the commissioners administratively. And as far as I'm aware, we will seek to maintain that timeline. So tomorrow, October 30th, is the final day for registration for the list to be published in November.
He said October, he meant September 30 today. September 30 is the final day for you to get onto the list. Yes? Call the Electoral Office of Jamaica, yes, and find out how you go about getting on to the list. Right? We should all be registered to vote. Just in case you change your mind and say, you know what, I want to vote. Yeah? That you will be able to do so. If your name not on the list, you can't vote. It's as simple as that. So give yourself the option. Yeah. All right. Now, the Blue Dot polls. We gave you the results last Friday of the party standings. And if you haven't heard, the Blue Dot pollsters went into the field between the 6th and the 19th, I think, of September. The poll had a margin of error of plus or minus 3%. And when they asked Jamaicans if a general elections were called today, at the time, which of the party's candidates would you vote for? Yes? 31% said they would vote for the JLP, 28% said they would vote for the PNP. That's a 3-point difference, which is smack in the middle of the margin of error. And according to the statisticians, that means they are in a dead heat, because the concept of the margin of error means what is 31% could actually be plus 3, 34%, or minus 3, which could be 28%. Similarly, what is 28% for the PNP now could actually be 31% on the upside, plus 3, or on the downside, minus 3, 25%. Therefore, the parties are in a dead heat. We like to use a horse racing term. Neck and neck. Everything to play for. It takes who has a better jockey now. Yes, you're within the last furlong, the final furlong. Who is going to nurse their horse to the finish line first? Yeah? Do you go for the whip or what? Yes? Ridership now. And the pollsters say the JLP lead is, quote, negligible. And if the poll findings were to hold on an election day, in all 63 seats we have in the country, the balance in the parliament would be 33 for the JLP, 30 for the PNP, if these numbers were to hold in an election, in an actual election. Now you see how close that is. So the JLP would be reduced from 49 to 33 seats. That's a loss of how many? 16. The PNP would move from 14 currently to 30. Which reminds us of 2007? When we came out at 32-31. You remember that? 32-31 it was? Yeah. Or it was, my head going now. Which year was it? 32-31. Yeah? So, the other takeaway from the polls, it's a trend. One poll is not a very good indicator because it depends on what is happening in the country. Yeah? At the time, may influence people's views. That is why the pollsters will tell you when there's a major incident or event happening, they don't like to go into the field at that time. The PNP has taken to go into the field at that time when the story is negative against the government because they know there'll be a little bump for them. Yes? But the pollsters, the statistician will tell you, don't go into the field when you have a major event, one way or the other, positive or negative. You don't do it because you're not going to get an accurate feeling of public sentiments and mood. Yeah? So the trend is suggesting clearly that the opposition PNP is moving up. It has moved from 25% in September 2023 to 28% in September 2024. Yes, that's a movement of 3 percentage points. The JLP has not moved. The JLP has stalled, only moving 1 percentage point in that year, September 23 to September 24, moving from 30% last year to now 31% this year. And then the other big takeaway from the September Blue Dot polls, Mark Golding must be smiling. he is smiling because he has a lot to point to. There's been a 6 percentage point movement in those who now have a positive view of Golding since February 2024. That figure now stands at 30%, the highest it's been since we started polling and Golding becoming the leader of the PNP. Yeah? 23% now view him negatively. 46% still high, neutral. But for the first time since he was elected the PNP leader, Golding's net favorability rating is running ahead, of his party. His net favorability now stands at 7%. He's in positive territory. All of our previous polls had him drowning underwater, as we would say. He's now in net positive favorability territory. So previously, the PNP was carrying him. Now he is running ahead of the PNP. That must be music to his ears. For Holness, not all bad. Holness is showing signs of resilience, according to the poll findings. Those who view the Prime Minister positively stand at 39%. That's in September this month. That's compared to 28% who view him negatively. Yeah? So that's a net favorability, net of 11%. 33% are neutral on the question of Mr. Holness. Yes? So he has a net positive of 11%, up from 28%. Well, last year, he was viewed... No, let me get that right. Last year, those who viewed the Prime Minister positively was 28%. It's now at 39%. All right? On his job approval rating, 40% say the Prime Minister is doing a good job. 40% saying as Prime Minister after 8 years, he's doing a good job. 30%, 32% in fact, saying he's doing an average job. Neither good nor bad. Average. 28% saying he's doing a poor job. Therefore, again, he is in net positive territory. And what is also good for Holness, that job approval rating is up from a low of 32% last September to 40% this year. So last year only 32% rated his job performance as Prime Minister as good. It's now up to 40% this year. That's a significant increase. What is also a takeaway for the Labour Party and Holness? Women. Women are more supportive of Holness. They continue to break in favour of him, with 42% saying he's done a good job as Prime Minister, compared to 39% of men who say the same. So the women, they like Holness for whatever reason, but they do. And they tell me here, him just look good. Yes. 34% of women rated the Prime Minister's performance as average, and 30% of men said the same. So you see, women again ahead of the men in terms of their approval of the Prime Minister. Listen to this. 24% of women rated his performance. 24% of women rated his performance as poor. You know what was that figure for men? 31%. That's a 7-point difference. Yes. So women are clearly, is going for the Prime Minister. Now when we ask the same job approval ratings of Golding, the gender balance is flipped. Men were more likely to rate Golding's performance positively. 33% of men say he's doing a good job, compared to only 24% of women. You hear that? 33% of men say Golding, the PNP leader, is doing a good job, compared to only 24% of women. 46% of women rated Golding's performance as average, neither good nor bad. Average, 46%. But for men, that figure drops to 37%. 30%. Yeah? Now, when those who rated his performance as poor, it's a split, 30-30, men and women. Yeah? 30-30. Yeah. So those were the major findings from the nationwide Blue Dot polls. I'm sure the parties will study the results and map their strategies into the next crucial 12 months. All right?